I had a piece of plexiglass that was sharpened down, and this thing was razor sharp. I thought to myself, where am I at? You know, where's my life go from here? I mean, is this it? This is what I'm doing. This is the way of the world today. I was losing my sense of empathy with my fellow man. There were times where I was strapped. I carried weapons, and I wasn't hesitant to use the weapons if I needed to survive. Greetings and salutations. I'm Victor DeSordi, and welcome to my channel at 28 to Persevere. Thanks for watching. At the end of this video, hit me up with a comment because I read them all, good, bad, or indifferent. I very much value what other people have to say about my channel and about life in general. I look forward to any other new subscribers reaching out. Let me know what they're thinking about life, about my videos, whatever it is that's on your mind. We can discuss them. Give me some ideas if you have any ideas that you want to talk about, especially concerning the prison system. The years that I spent inside, um, I look upon now as something that is invaluable in the sense that it's given me tremendous insight, not only into human nature and the ins and outs of the prison system and how to survive the prison system through the 28 years of incarceration, but it also gives me tremendous insight into how others feel, how others think. It lets me know where I stand in the hierarchy of the primitive nature of survival. Once you're in a position that I was in for so as long as I was in it, your base instincts really have to move you. Your ability to quickly process information, especially if there's something that's concerning to you that related to something violent happening, you had to quickly process the environment, quickly manifest whatever type of energy you needed to manifest in a split second for your survival. If you had to react impulsively, you reacted impulsively. If you had to comprehend and be methodical, you comprehended things and then methodically responded in a calculated fashion. I tried to be very reflective and pensive while I was incarcerated. I tried to process my environment and the information that it gave me and tried to have not only just a better understanding of the world around me, but the way that I then not only processed that information, but then reacted accordingly. I did things that I believed would assure my survival for that day. And, there were times where I was strapped. I carried weapons and I wasn't hesitant to use the weapons if I needed to survive. There were times in Auburn in particular where you would meet up with other groups of guys that you were cool with. And if there was an issue involved with the certain individuals that were part of, your pack, basically, your tribe, uh, and I've talked about in detail that I was never gang affiliated, but I was close to a lot of guys, and the close knit brotherhood that I had with a lot of guys, my loyalty to them would help, in my mind, assure their survival too, as it was towards them to me. So I would back them up, and I had their back no matter what. And a lot of the times, in prison, shit happens, and you might have to stand up and for yourself or for someone else in the sense that you got their back, they might be up against it. A lot of people that you deal with are gang related and gang affiliated in some form or fashion, so that when they have a beef, the rest of the gang jumps right in. And a lot of the times, things have to be sanctioned by shot callers and things just pop off on a drop of a hat. But sometimes they do, and other times you guys have beef or whatever it is. And in Auburn, there was blind spots. I briefly spoke on the topic in previous videos about the various blind spots in the Auburn Correctional Facility. These blind spots were ways of in places that you can get away with anything. There was no videos anywhere. There was no cameras positioned throughout the yards or in certain parts of the prison like there are today that I've heard. But security wasn't stationed at every crevice inside the Auburn Correctional Facility. I mean, this was a mass tomb, and that's how I looked at it. And things could pop off at any time and at any place. And I remember in particular, there were various blind spots in the yard. There's certain parts of the yard, like there's certain corners of the yard where guys would literally congregate if they knew they wanted to either throw down or gun to gun with somebody, and which is knife to knife or razor to razor. And these blind spots was where guys would meet up. And there were many times throughout my incarceration, especially later on in my incarceration, where I too would meet up with guys, and we would meet there, and with the intention of going gun to gun with people. And there was a one moment in particular that immediately comes to my mind where a group of guys that I knew, there was about 4 or 5 of us, and another group of individuals, about maybe 6 or 7 of them, wasn't really sure exactly the number. They did meet up in this blind spot in particular, and one guy I knew had a beef with another guy in that particular outlet, and that outfit, they felt the way they felt, however they felt towards the guy that I knew, and because I had his back, we were all strapped and we were just waiting for something to pop off, and the tension was palpable, and I remember it. It was so thick, and you know, I remember how um, the the weapon that I had, how it felt in my pocket, at the time, and I had a piece of plexiglass that was sharpened down, and this thing was razor sharp. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't want to use it. Obviously, still in the back of my mind, I was in my early 20s then. I wanted to get out. I wanted to go home. But this was my life now. I didn't think I was gonna get out, and I had to think like a savage. I had this warrior instinct inside me anyway that I lived by, the mantra. That I was gonna survive at all costs, regardless of whether or not it even cost my life, in the sense of defending it, or defending someone else that I had their back and loyalty inside. So I remember this one time, an individual I knew did go gun to gun with a group from another outfit, and we were all present there, and thankfully it was only we were one on one, but these guys were going at it pretty good, and they both had weapons. The guy I knew, I think he had an ice pick, and whatever else the other guy had, and they were going at it, and they poked each other a few times, and it got pretty aggressive and pretty bloody. I remember the violence and the thumping of the fist and the knives and people hitting each other, and it was pretty graphic and pretty telling of the environment. And then it was eventually broken up because there was kind of like this unwritten law that at a certain point, certain individuals from that outfit would look over at us, and they'd basically see whether or not we wanted to either escalate it all on one, or just stop it. So I remember one of the individuals looking over at us, and I caught eye contact with the guy and basically gave him a nod. He gave me a nod. But that was it. Let's end this. So I ran in there, so did they, and so did the other guys. We stopped it. We stopped it before the guys ended up killing one another. But I remember this blind spot. Nothing ever came of it. It was just a brief thing, and the guy that I knew was poked up pretty bad, and I remember we brought him back to the court, and he took his shirt off and tried to patch him up somewhat, and the other guy, I don't know what really ever happened to the other guy, but this was something that really raised my eyebrows, so to speak, about the blind spots in the prison system. I remember a little bit later on that day, when I finally made it back to my cell, and the yard closed and everybody went their separate ways, and I remember sitting there in my cell, and I'm sitting down on my bed, and I remember reaching in my pocket and pulling out that piece of plexiglass. And I remember looking at this thing on my hand. I mean, it looked like some medieval axe. And I thought to myself, where am I at? You know, where's my life go from here? I mean, is this it? This is what I'm doing. This is the way of the world today. This is how I have to think and comprehend this world. And I remember this vividly. I mean, I was in, as I said earlier, maybe my early 20s, maybe mid 20s at the most. But I was losing touch with the reality beyond the wall. I didn't think twice about, stabbing one of these guys if need be, it just to survive or to help out the man that I was making sure he was good. And that's just the way I felt. I mean, I was going through a really rough patch. I mean, there was a early time in my incarceration where I was losing my sense of empathy with my fellow man, uh, the ability to process what most people would say common sense was going thrown out the window, because in the world that we lived, there wasn't much common to the world beyond the wall. You can't relate anything out there to inside the prison system. Beyond the wall was an entirely different world. The way people process information, the way they deal with arguments or any forms of hostility. Um, something petty outside the world might be just looked upon or rolled eyes on. In prison, it's of dire consequences to respond violently immediately, to make sure that you get the respect that you believe you deserve and that you've earned through whatever it is, how you survive that your time in prison. And the amount of information I was processing at such a young age, trying to manifest into the reality that I needed to confront each day in a fashion that would allow me to survive that day, and the way that I need to see the world now was in a fashion that, and in a manner that would distill not only the authority that I felt I had to impose upon this world, but the discipline that I had to have inside me, the amount of anger and rage that I had, and I had to make sure that I channeled in a fashion that wouldn't destroy me ultimately, but if it did, I would stand up for myself. I would stand up for my principles and my values, and keep my dignity intact. Because in prison, your dignity gets stripped away. It's one of the first things you lose when you're forced to strip down and you're forced to go through the humiliating process of the showers, and obviously you no longer have any access to any of your personal items that helped identify you, um, personal clothing, whatever it was that you had prior to going behind those bars and being incarcerated. So you're trying to hold on desperately to your sense of humanity, and that was a daily struggle for me. And I've spoken about this in previous videos, but it's an ongoing issue while you're inside. And you know, I was getting very hard to the reality of it, and a lot of the guys that knew me the best in there, they knew this. A lot of guys said, that there were times that they saw I had a faraway stare in my eyes, and I wasn't, obviously cognizant of that. But they would say that, Vic, sometimes you look, you just, you're not right here, you're not present right now, because I was just filled with such anger and contempt, and it was getting worse in my early 20s. And I tried to find salvation, so to speak, in certain things, especially my family and my faith, and my ability to understand the world was predicated on the necessity to understand myself. And you have to educate yourself in every fashion that you can to do this. And sometimes your experiences, obviously, they reveal yourself to yourself by how you respond to your experiences. And I'm grateful, to be sitting here today and know that I didn't reach a level where I ended up bodying somebody in prison. Then I would have never gotten out, obviously. But there was a stretch of time where I wasn't hesitant to do that if I had to. When I went to prison, I was just happy-go-lucky kid, and 19 years old. Life of the party. Let's have fun. Let's have a good time. I love being around my friends. I love partying. I love having a good time. And that part of me really was no longer relevant or even in existence at a certain stage, especially in my early 20s. Started to manifest a part of myself that was just fueled by the anger and the discontent of my environment, and fueled by the rage, fueled by the hatred all around me, racial or otherwise. And I realized it, and I had to make sure that I understood who I was, and then in order to better understand the world around me. But I remember looking down at this piece of plexiglass, and that piece of plexiglass really symbolized my strength and my fortitude, because my ability not to use it, and my ability not to just jump into that fray and start, stabbing up the other guy, because a part of myself wanted to, because a part of myself felt the need to, the urge to, because of survival, to help this guy, and because that's just the mantra in prison. That's your mo, it's survival by all means necessary. But I'm real grateful I didn't, and I'm real grateful that over time, these moments, these experiences, helped to define the man I am today, and the tolerance that I have inside me now, the anger that I have suppressed, and now have filtered away, and the joy I have for lust, and the joy I have for life, the lust for life, is alive and well, vibrant, and each day is a blessing, above ground. Going through what I went through to be in the position I'm in today is great. I'm grateful. With that being said, man, hit me up with a comment. Share your experiences, good, bad, whatever. Let's talk about life, man. Let's keep this going. Let's keep this commentary strong. All means necessary. Survive. Enjoy your life. Live it one day at a time. So the only time we have left to do. That's it. That's our position and where we stand in this world. Till next time, go with the gods. Persevere.